Welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly podcast featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from fresh perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 261, Prosperous Summer, Receive. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I am the host, and I'm here today in 818 Studios with my producer.
Good morning, everybody. This is Dave Croft, and welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey. As always, I hope that you've had a wonderful weekend, and welcome to summer. By the time this comes out, it'll be summertime. Summer's officially here, and I'm ready for it. It's been cooler here lately, which I've been loving. And some much needed rain. And so just so happy to have you with us for another episode.
Yeah. Dave, I almost felt like you were saying that to me. I was like, yeah, Dave, I'm really happy to be here. Yeah. But to all of our listeners, of course, we're happy to have you along for the drive or the morning commute or, whatever, however and whenever you listen.
Could be biking. They could be jogging. They could be mowing the lawn, doing chores, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And, I decided to do the Prosperity series because I just recently met up with a dear friend. I've known her for 25 years, and she owns a incredibly successful business in Kansas City. She's been on our program before as well. Her name's Dr. Michelle Robin, and she happened to be in Tampa recently. And we had a meeting together with several healthcare providers, people who were supporting wellness, and she's creating a wellness consortium. Anyway, it was a great meeting about wellness, and I was talking about my work with athletes. And when she introduced me, the funny thing was, she said, well, this is the prosperity guru, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson. And I started laughing. And I thought, when I met her 25 years ago, I was doing prosperity. So friends, I've been doing this a long time. And what I know is it's fun to practice these principles. It's fun to watch them work. I recently had a manifestation myself, and it's fun because summer can be a time where there seems to be a lull in the prosperity. I don't know what it is. It's like you're spending money, you're going on vacation, and in churches, it tends to be the lowest financial time of the year. So something about summer, I always try to give an uplift to the prosperity during this time.
Yeah, I think kids are out of school, and like you said, maybe some trips to Disney or Six Flags or the beach. Yeah, you're probably right. Right.
Yeah. It's a real interesting thing. And so I also know, it seems like for me, I have a little more headspace in the summer to think about these kind of things. I'm not sure why, because my son's home from school, but it seems like there's a little less going on for me. And I like to really focus on this because, friends, when I teach these prosperity principles, I always relearn more. And, I've been teaching it for so long, and I recently had a manifestation, and it took me a little longer than I had hoped to manifest it. Like there's some work I wanted to get done on my home, and I was working on manifesting a certain amount of money, and I was hoping to do it in 30 days. Well, at 30 days, I didn't reach it. And I said, what in me has not been in alignment? But it was less than another 30 days before I got over the amount I was holding. And I did a lot of work. I wasn't just sitting back, waiting on money to fall from the clouds. I was working, I was traveling and speaking, but I had this certain amount in mind. And when I set that intention in motion, I didn't know the how I was going to bring about that financial manifestation. So for me, prosperity is a number of things. For me, prosperity is a wonderful life. It's, it's happiness, it's goodness, it's a fit body, it's time with my family, it's a beautiful home, it's relationships that work. Prosperity is many things, but I'm really focusing on the prosperity principles mostly as it relates to finance because it gets our attention and helps us realize how we can co-create anything. So I love to talk about prosperity. I love to talk about being in the flow. And I also love to have people wake up to the fact that they are the empowerers. Is that a word? That they are empowered to bring forth all the good in their lives. So listeners, I'm saying this to you, that these don't just work for me. These don't just work for prosperity teachers, that in fact, we all have the power to bring more good into our lives and into the world. And that's why I teach this stuff. So yeah, this is really, really good material this summer. And prosperous summer, why not, is what I have to say, Dave. Why not?
Why not? Yeah, absolutely.
So did you give the title, or did I talk?
No,
I got excited.
Well, it's, this is a series, Prosperous Summer, and today is Receive. Prosperous Summer.
Yeah, I'm going to receive some coffee right now.
Yeah, I'll join you here.
Praise God. It was pretty funny. Last month, I was speaking in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and I advertised a little bit on the channel. I'm going to speak there next year as well, and so it's nice to get a call back. But what was so interesting, evidently my love of coffee is known far and wide, because the organizer of the event sent me links for a coffee shop before I arrived near the hotel.
Like to place your order,
Yeah,
before?
like just so you know, this is walking distance from your hotel.
That's good.
Oh, yeah. I ended up not spending the most time there. I found another place, but I had a couple of really nice coffee places near the hotel. So that's a lot of fun. So if you want to bring me into your area, friends, you've got to provide.
That's right.
You've got to provide Java.
That's right. Locally sourced, right? The localer, the better.
The localer, the better. Yeah. And the place I ended up spending the most time was a coffee shop called Abide, Abide. And part of it was in what had formerly been a church, and it seemed to be spiritually based. Mm-hmm. And there was an area in the back, which was kind of cool. They had a rack that was holding magazines, but what it actually was an old pew rack that had held hymnals.
Oh, wow.
And there was a little plaque that kind of honored, the other use in the building. Like it said, like, from the Methodist Church, blah, blah, blah. Anyway.
And it didn't have like a coffee pun, like Holy Grounds or something like that?
No, it didn't. But because the word abide, you hear that often in a spiritual setting, abide in me, you know. And one of my favorite tunes I have a brother-in-law who's a Christian musician, and he has a song on his CD called Just Abide. And so, yeah, I fell in love with the place and the people and the coffee. Nothing like a good pour over. So for me, coffee is prosperity, I guess. Growing up, when there was good news or bad news, what did you do? You made coffee.
Yeah.
You made coffee. Yeah. So today is I think it's show 261, which I can't believe we're already there.
Yeah, episode 261.
And the title is?
Prosperous Summer, Receive.
Okay. Receive. So, friends, I was thinking earlier this morning during I had a computer issue, so it was a real interesting thought process this morning. But I was thinking about the first 2 weeks, and we talked about tithing and giving, all right? Those are two completely different shows. And if you're just signing on to the podcast today, I want you to go back and listen to those two. Can I give an assignment, Dave? Yeah,
give them some homework. Give them some homework.
Well, I think it's important because, so today is receive. And let me just start out by saying receiving is a very important part of experiencing prosperity. And it took me a very long time personally to be okay with receiving. So I wanted to give it its due and not just talk about giving, but also talk about receiving. So a lot of us, and a lot of people that listen to this channel and this show in particular, what I've learned is they're big givers to life. They're often business owners. They're often parents. They're often whatever they do, they give a lot of their energy. Dave, you and Shannon are big givers, even though you don't have children. You give to Shannon's mom. You give to students. You give to communities. Whatever you're a part of, you give. right? So you guys, I'm not meaning to put you on the spot. You guys are just a great example of that. You're great givers. And so many of our listeners are that way too. They're great givers. And I have always been a big giver. But what I've really learned is that receiving is as much a part of the flow as giving. So even if we're good givers, but we're not good at receiving, we'll really not be in the flow, because you can only give so long before you run out.
Yeah, this is yep. Yeah, and sometimes the biggest givers have the hardest time receiving. Like I know that I have a really hard time receiving help or asking, and not just like, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble,
Right.
but for example, if I need something, right? Let me rephrase it. If Shannon needs, if we're comfortable, we're having, watching TV or whatever, and she needs a drink, I'll be like, yep, I'll go get you a drink. No problem.
I've seen you do it. Exactly.
Right? No
You're right
problem.
there. You're right there.
But never in a million years would I feel like comfortable asking, like, would you get me a drink? And
No.
even if she was going to the kitchen and say, can I get you a drink? I'd be like, no, I'm
No,
fine.
I got it.
And then 5 minutes later, I'll go get my own drink.
Right.
And I don't know what that's about, but yeah, it's really, really, really tough, I think.
I think you're right. And I think there is a kind of a sweet kind of humility to receiving. And I don't know. Well, what I've discovered about my own journey, I'm going to say it that way. What I've discovered about my own journey is that, believe it or not, when you're always the giver, in some ways you have a different power than if you're a receiver. And it's not a bad power, right? All power, it can be held, healthfully or non-healthfully. And Dave, you hold your power in a beautiful, healthy way. And there's service in the way you hold power. So this is not about you. It's about my journey. But I just wanted to reassure you about what.
Oh, you're good.
I was like, Dave is going to flip out and go into. Right. So, and all these things are super subtle, right? In terms of the humility, in my family, I've always been a big giver. And there was a time a few years ago where a sister reached out and offered some help that was really needed at the time. And it was a short-term need. So, which is why I felt okay about receiving. It was really a gift from God that she was able to do it. And what was so interesting is that with this particular sibling in the past, we've not always gotten along, which is really unusual. I have so much love for my family. And, I often jokingly say, oh yeah, we're all crazy. but this meant a lot. And I literally had to go into prayer and ask, was this a good thing to receive from her? And it was, and I did accept, and it was a real healing in our relationship. So for me, receiving has been almost a spiritual discipline. And it's one thing when I receive, say, for the show, because I know that as people give to the show, it says they value it and it keeps us on the air. That's good, and I'm good with that. It was more on a personal level that it was difficult for me because, you do a job, you get paid, right? So I show up, I do this job, and money comes from wherever it does, a variety of places from the universe. But I realized the more self-aware I'm becoming, the more able I am to receive. It's a weird thing. So now it's a balance thing though, right? Because some people receive too much. So this is why I'm lifting this up, that you might be the person that's always, always, always receiving, and it's your turn to give. So this is why we're bringing this up. If you're the one that's always receiving, people are always doing things for you, it may be time for you to step up and move into the flow and begin to give. That's why I'm saying, if you didn't listen to the first 2 weeks, go back and listen to those, because we talked about in the first show about really giving of your money to the place you receive your spiritual food. The second one was really about giving in general. Yes, giving of your money, but giving of your time, giving of your talents, giving to people you know and love, giving to your family, giving to community. And all those are ways in my view, that are very important to give for a balanced life. If you're just working and giving to your immediate family, there's something missing. And because we are part of a larger whole. And in our society right now, it's all about what can I get? And so I wanted to lift that up too in this show, that if you've been in receiving mode too long, it's time to give, right? So this is about you being discerning in your own process, in your own work, with where are you on this giving or receiving journey. But for most of us that are big givers, it is hard to receive. Yeah, it is hard to receive. So what we're constantly trying to do on the show, I often say all the shows are about helping you grow, prosper, and evolve. The growth is what? Well, the growth is, I've always done it this way. Let me try a new way. I've always been the giver. I wonder what it would be like to receive. And sometimes you're going to have to bring on new boundaries with your own behavior. In other words, you're going to have to create internal boundaries for yourself where you go, today I need to do something for me, or I need to receive, rather than going out and giving. Does that make sense what I'm saying in that, Dave?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's well, I realized in a friendship with somebody I just dearly love, that I was really, and it's somebody I've known 25 years, and we just have a different need for connection. I want more connection than he does. And I realized I was kind of pouring myself into trying to connect rather than just, okay, if this really doesn't work for him right now, I've got lots to do. I'm not sure why I'm reaching out this much, and I need to bring this back into balance. We're not any less friends, but it just was feeling unbalanced to me. So now I kind of have this like internal thing that goes, wait a minute. You've reached out a couple times and you haven't heard back. Time to let it go.
Yeah. Or you've been in a friendship and you feel like you're always the one making, reaching out. Let's get together. Let's get together. And that's the first thing I thought when you said, if you're always the one receiving. And so I get coffee with a buddy of mine. We go about once a month or so. And it's pretty healthy exchange of, sometimes I'll text him, say, hey, let's grab a coffee. Sometimes he'll text me, hey, let's grab a coffee. Yeah. And if I haven't heard from him in a while, then
you go,
I know
hey,
that's me.
It's
my turn. It's my turn. And it's not transactional like this. But if I think, I haven't heard, from Mark in a while, then I'm going to reach out to Mark. That is my mental cue that, okay, this is something that I want to happen. So it's my place to do that at that point.
Well, and you're saying something important. I wanted to get to this. So it's so interesting you brought this up, Dave, because if you're the one always reaching out, then the other person is not showing you your value in the relationship, right? So if I'm always having to reach to Dave every time I need a connection, always, then I'm valuing Dave more than Dave values me. And somebody might say, well, I'm just not good at that. This is what I've heard. I've heard this in marriage counseling. People, one of them will say, well, I'm just not good at that. And I say, well, your partner is telling you that they don't feel loved right now. So that's something for you to develop. You don't get to be not good at that and stay in this relationship. That's right. That's called the self-limiting beliefs. I'm not good at that means my marriage is going to end. Because a marriage is about learning what the other person needs to feel loved, to feel whole, to feel complete, to feel honored, to feel I'm going to use this word, valued. I'll even use this word, sexy, right? If you're not reaching the other way, especially if it's and it can be men to women or same sex, doesn't matter. But if one person's doing all the reaching out or all the initiating of the intimacy, the other person finally goes, you know what? I'm tired of reaching. Yeah. So you can't just say, I'm not good at that and be a grown up anymore.
Yeah. It's not it's not the 50s where we just gave,
right.
people a big giant pass. That's just the way it is. Like, nope.
No, it actually isn't. Right.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I discovered an alarming statistic about breakups. So I'm not even going to list it. But the fact is, if you're not feeling seen, heard, or valued in a relationship, you're going to find something somewhere else. And it's part of our society at the moment. And friends, even if you love somebody, behaviors matter, right? So if one person is doing all the reaching, one person is always making every plan, one person always has to decide everything, you're in too much of a receiving mode. Yeah, that's just all there is to it.
Now,
And I get, go ahead.
No,
go
I was
ahead.
just going to ask you, it's how if somebody's in a receiving mode, they might not necessarily realize they're in a receiving mode. So
100%.
How do you tune into that?
It's called an addiction, right? Yeah, yeah. Well, that's really interesting. Usually how it changes is that the person who's giving so much starts to get a boundary, and the other person goes, whoa, what's going on? Yeah, because you can't say to people, by the way, honey, I'm going to just quit giving to you so much and see how that goes. So you know how that feels.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not pejorative, but it's about if I'm giving past where I want to give, and having said that, like, I grew up with a grandmother with Alzheimer's. I could never say to her, I'm tired of giving. Right. That's the job when you have a family member who's ill or you're dealing with somebody with a disability. You can't walk off and say, I'm tired of giving. Yep. Right. But what you can do is make sure there are other ways you receive from other people. Right. So sometimes it's for the person who is overgiving, it's setting this internal boundary with, you know what? I'm just going to wait and see if he or she, whatever it is, if this other person comes my way, like I'm going to give them space to, because sometimes they're willing to, they're able to, we're not giving them the space to. So I think the key to that balance in any friendship or relationship is just allowing the space for it to happen. Because usually, especially if people have been together for a while, there's some kind of symbiosis in relationships that happens where the other person kind of comes the other way. It's like you were saying about your friend. If you don't call, it's kind of natural when you equally value the relationship and the friendship. If there's nothing there like depression or addiction going on, they're going to come back your way. Mm-hmm. Now, if they don't come back your way, there might be a different issue to address. Like I have another friend who really deals with depression. And so if I don't hear from him in a while, I'll call and say, you're either busy, isolating, or depressed. Whatever it is, call me. And then I'll hear back. And he'll say, oh, RCA, it was all of the above. Or something like that. And we'll laugh. And I'll go, well, tell me what's going on, Mm-hmm. And we have that kind of friendship. And if there's something going on with me, if he doesn't hear from me for a while, he's like, are you okay? Because I always hear from you, So usually it's the giver that needs to shift first, because that giving does become expected. And the good news is, if you're a big giver in a relationship, you're probably making the other person very happy.
Especially if they're big on receiving.
Right. Well, it is called that relationship capital, mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's really wonderful to be a giver in a relationship. But again, if you're only giving, that is out of balance. So today is about learning to receive. So sometimes I wish I had I could see thought bubbles with what our listeners are going are thinking, like, as I'm saying this, like, are you in balance with your giving? Are you in balance with your receiving? And even thinking about it in the work setting or the business setting, I was working with a group of leaders one time, and they managed some, communities of their own. And we did this practice where I said, how do you thank your staff or employees? And there was dead silence. And I said, well, don't you receive the benefits of their work? And they were like, yeah. So I had to actually list ways to acknowledge their employees. In other words, their employees were giving to them so much, and that was the job, right? But because they'd never been thanked, there was not this kind of feedback loop or flow of energy, and everybody was starting to feel disconnected. So there is a balance of the giving and the receiving. So if you are a person, again, I want to touch on this again, who has a hard time receiving, remember that it takes a great deal of self-awareness and even, I will say, self-care to receive because of the humility aspect. Sometimes it's okay to simply say, thank you.
Yeah. I think I've talked about this on the show before, but for our birthdays, we have in the Kropf house, we have king or queen for the day. So if it's your birthday, then
nice.
You're king or queen for the day, right? And whatever dinner, lunch, whatever you want. And so Shannon's birthday comes first. And so, she's queen for the day, and she has zero problems like holding the crown and scepter and be like, actually, she's really mellowed out. She's never asked me to like paint the kitchen or anything, which she could. Technically, she could.
Technically, she
queen.
could.
But when it comes for my king for the day, which is, about 2 weeks later, I have the hardest time with this. Right. And so what I end up doing is having Shannon do the things that I normally do, like go run and pick up Dunkin' Donuts, right? Go do all the little givey things that I do on the regular. That's what I ask. It's nothing. It's never a big grand gesture. It's always little tiny things that. But I still have a hard time. There's still this latent guilt, right?
Yeah, right. Well, it's really interesting as a parent. I'm a big giver to my son, and I know I am. And I enjoy it a lot. And several years ago, he's such a fine young man, honestly, but he's a normal kid like anybody, and sometimes doesn't want to do things. I don't always want to take out the trash either, but I do it. So one time he was not doing chores, and I said, you know what? I want to do an experiment. He goes, oh, really? What? And I said, I want to experiment being Joshua, and I want you to experience being Mama. And he goes, I don't want to do that. And I go, why not? I go, why not? He goes, I don't want to do that. I said, well, you know what? We're going to do it. We're going to do it for 24 hours. I said, but you know what? I'm going to go in my room and be on my computer first. And he goes, what? And I go, it's starting now. And he goes, it is? I said, well, you know how to make dinner, don't you? I said, you've got that dish you make. And I said, I'm going to just go in here and be on my computer. As a matter of fact, I'm going to shut the door to my room. And if you need me, you're going to have to knock on the door because I'm not available. And oh my gosh, that was a very interesting 24 hours. And we've never gone back to that again, that state of me overgiving and him over receiving. It broke that. It broke that. Now, it's really easy too with only children. He's an only child to really overgive. And so that's my work as a parent too. But it was great for him to experience the amount of things I did in a day. And I said, I'm your mom, so I'm always going to do more. And there's somebody out there going, that's harsh. It taught him a lesson. And if I don't teach it now, his roommates in college are going to go, don't live with him.
Yeah.
That guy does nothing.
And there will be decidedly less love in the room when it breaks.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
Yep.
And so, he knows how to receive, but he's also learning to be a giver. And most kids his age don't give at all. And he's a great giver. He gives to church. He gives to, he gives to his friends. He's always helping teachers. He's staying after school. He helps with his orchestra. He's a great helper. But at home, he wasn't. And it's like, no, that's not okay.
Yeah.
That's not okay. So it was out of balance. So friends, are you in balance? Are you out of balance? Remembering receiving is an important part of experiencing prosperity. And so, as always, if you're listening to this, you want to grow, you want to prosper, you want to evolve. This is one way we do that. It's not to say you're wrong because you're receiving too much or you're wrong because you're giving too much. It's not about right and wrong. It's about the balance of practicing these principles so life gets easier. That's a phrase I've been using recently. When I was speaking in Pennsylvania, when I was just at Unity North Tampa, I said, would it be okay if life got easier? Why don't you ask the person next to you? Would it be okay if life got easier? Everybody goes, actually, yeah. Okay. Practicing these principles helps life get easier because you are in the flow. In other words, your receiving creates a different flow. If you're only giving, that's not a flow. If you're giving and receiving, the waves go in and out, right? There's a coming and a going. This is what receiving does. It's the other side of giving. It's the other side of giving. So, my dear friends who listen, I love you and I bless you, and I know you're a big giver to life. It's okay to receive. Not only okay, it's an important part of the flow. So, the last piece I want to mention is in receiving. I want you to be able to receive and receive with great gratitude. The scriptures say all good and perfect things come down from the Father of lights, right? So whatever good is coming your way, bless it. Receive it with great gratitude, right? Knowing it is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Receive with great love, great gratitude. Knowing you are worthy, knowing you deserve it, knowing all is well. This is an important part of the flow and will keep you in the flow of prosperity. So, dear friend, my prayer for you this summer is you have a prosperous summer and that you're setting up for yourself prosperity through the coming year even. That these principles are ones you start to think about on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, as you're walking through, your work relationships, as you're walking through your personal and romantic relationships, that you're in balance and you're in the flow so that you're experiencing all the good the universe has for you. So thank you for listening today, dear friend. I look forward to seeing you next week, and blessings on the journey.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2023, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.